Hello, and welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You with Paula, the YouTube channel. Here at KMKY, we often dive deep into topics that impact our everyday lives. In this episode, you will meet Ganesh V, a software engineer. He is an author of a very interesting fictional book, which is an easy read, entitled Let Me Into Heaven. What particularly caught my eye when I first read about my guest is that he asks thought-provoking questions such as, what is the meaning of the second coming of Christ? And he also has profound perspectives to share on the topic, exploring how science and faith can coexist. A topic that you love to talk about, and that is how science and faith can coexist.
Correct.
I'm interested to know your thoughts on that.
So I'll go back to a little bit of history. And Dr. Stephen Meyer is probably the leading expert in the world on this. I looked at how science came about to begin with, right? Because we were not always scientists in the sense we think of today. Technology is not grown the way it has grown forever. It's only been in the recent, maybe few hundred years that there's been a dramatic growth in knowledge and scientific-based approaches. Part of it is it started with the Judeo-Christian mindset, right? And what Newton, when he wrote his Principia Mathematica and others were looking at is they wanted to understand the mind of God, right? And since they understood God to be intelligent, they were looking for intelligence in his creation, right? And so they expected the nature around us to be intelligible. It could be explored with intelligence, brains, questions. To everyone's surprise, and nobody understands why this is the case, you can describe nature with math. Why is that, right? And so, because I think it's a product of an intelligent mind, which is God. And so I think since that was the beginnings of science, not only they expected nature to be intelligible, but they also realize that we are sinners and we tend to exaggerate stuff or look at stuff which glorifies us. And so they developed a scientific method. And this method was it wasn't dependent on any one person. Anyone could do the experiment. Anyone could reproduce the results. It's independent of the observer, who the person is. It's not subjective, it's objective in nature, right?
Yeah.
So those were some underpinnings of science as it started off. Now, I started as an atheist and a scientist. And so for me, things needed to be rational, it needed to make sense. It needed to be consistent with reality and not a reality I made up myself, right? And so when I looked at it through a rational mind and I ran into the origin of the universe problem, the origin of life, the DNA, the language of the DNA. These were all questions that I really struggled to see how outside of an intelligent mind we could have all of these, right? So as an example, if we were to go to Mars, right, and there's questions, is there life on Mars? And let's say the first thing we find when we land on Mars is an iPhone. Yes. Right? Unless you're an Android person, so then it could be an Android. But let's say it's an iPhone. Not only is it an iPhone, it's a functioning iPhone. It actually works. And we find there's a cellular network, right? And then, is that good evidence for life? I think so, because how is an iPhone going to get created on Mars without an intelligent designer to design the iPhone? Right? Right now, what scientists look at is nothing as profound as an iPhone. All they want to see is there water on Mars? If there's water on Mars, maybe there was life. But if you found an iPhone, then you say there's definitely life, right? Because it takes an intelligent designer to design this. So when you run into these problems and you see the level of complexity you see in nature, especially in living organisms, say, where does this come from, right? And let's say it's random, right? Yeah. So then everything to now is random, right? My brain cells are just electrons running around randomly. Why then do I believe in my thoughts, that it has any foundation, if all
Yeah.
it is random electrons bouncing around, right?
Yeah.
So rationality itself assumes, I mean, where does rationality come from? Why do we expect things to be rational, right? And so again, it comes from a rational mind, I think. Otherwise, there's no reason to, for things to be rational. So I believe not only they can coexist, but I think the scientific method is a great way to journey to God, right? There's two journeys, I think. One is a journey to God, and one is a journey with God, right? And so it's a great journey to God, but it's an even greater journey with God, right? Because now we're starting with the right first cause, the first creator, and we start understanding then the bigger questions we have around purpose and so on. So the journey with God is even more interesting than the one to God, but certainly science, well, I think can take someone to God.
Yeah.